they're into League One, and Stockport have to go again in League Two. Let's talk about some winners from the Premier League now, and two sides who have really had terrific seasons: Newcastle United and Aston Villa. Howard Hodgson is the former director of the Villa Supporters Trust, and Steve Wright is the Newcastle YouTuber for NUFC Matters. Gentlemen, a very good evening to both of you. I'm going to start with Aston Villa and Howard, if I may, here, first of all. And what a season for the whole end, and what an atmosphere it must have been there at the finish today.
It's amazing, Mark. I mean, I've been supporting Villa for, makes me feel old, about 45 years.
Yep.
And the atmosphere at Villa right now, in this incredible run-in, we've won our last 7 home games in a row since losing to Arsenal 2-4 very late on a few months ago, has been incredible. I mean, the club has just taken off. We already knew we had great owners who have put a lot of money in, but the big piece that was missing was getting that top coach. And since Unai Emery's come in, it's been absolutely incredible, the transformation in the football club. Incredible.
I've talked about this sort of thing before. I mean, you know, the likes of Steven Gerrard, the likes of Frank Lampard and others who finished the game and are coming in early to management. I just feel as well it's an easy go-to for a board, that sort of decision for me, but not so good for the players, in that a lot of the players playing will have either played against or with those, or know them so well. And Frank and Steve, for me, I think are too close to the players still, if you know what I mean. And
I do.
They perhaps as well can't get across what else they're wanting. Whereas you look at a Unai Emery and you think, you know what, tactically he may be brilliant. With communication, there can't be many better.
Yeah, I mean, tactically, he's incredible. I mean, I was lucky enough to see Ron Saunders, Ron Atkinson, Graham Taylor, some fabulous names at Villa, but we haven't seen a good name like that at Villa for a long time. Or, you know, a really capable manager, football manager, tactician. I've always thought Ron Atkinson was a brilliant tactician, actually. And do you remember that 94 League Cup final when he actually beat Manchester United and stopped Fergie getting the treble? Yeah. That was a brilliant tactical performance. And Emery is the best tactician I've seen at Villa, probably. You know, he's right up there with those guys anyway. Yeah. And he's totally revamped his playing style. We play out from the back. We play this high line, which, you know, teams think they can come here and make a mockery of that, and they just keep getting caught offside. I mean, he's transformed players that look like relegation players, Mark, only a few months ago, into winners. And, you know, well done to him. It's an incredible coaching performance. It really is, because he's only added one player since Gerrard left. So it is a victory for coaching. He's got this fantastic prize of getting Villa back into European competition for the first time in 13 years. And now he has the challenge of going into the transfer market this summer, which he undoubtedly will do, and seeing what he can do next season.
Exactly that. I tell you what, tactically for Ron Atkinson, when he was manager at Cambridge United, he was a brilliant tactician then as well. On a Friday, he used to have his 5-a-side team play against 5 others, and it was a case of champagne for the winners. But of course, they played on until Ron's side won. And the great late David Ruston, who was the chairman, I remember him saying to me on occasion, I can't afford this every Friday. But
I think Ellis felt the same.
No, but it was truly great. Well, if you've had a man that's just changed the club, it's fair to say, isn't it, about Brighton, that Robert De Zerbi has actually taken a club even further than anybody would have thought who were playing Villa today. And yet Eddie Howe at Newcastle United has become, for me now, the complete manager. See?
Yeah,
we count ourselves very lucky to have Eddie Howe at Newcastle United. I think Unai Emery's done a fantastic job at Aston Villa, and if you believe the press, then he was first choice for the new Newcastle owners, you know, when the takeover went through. But Eddie Howe had his CV, you know, at St James's Park on that very first day of the takeover, and he clearly impressed the owners at the interview to go in as second choice, and he's transformed the club. And I think what people need to remember with Newcastle is that the Great Escape last season is something that is rarely done. The team that is bottom at Christmas tends to go down. Might not go down bottom, but they certainly go down. Newcastle pulled off a wonderful transformation last season under Eddie Howe and Jason Tyndall's wonderful coaching and management, and they've carried it on into this season, which was difficult because, you know, we haven't had the same kind of commercial input that Manchester United, Man City, Chelsea, Spurs have had in recent seasons. We've been relegated twice under the former owner, and from our perspective, we are slightly hampered. We're not the richest club in the world as many think we are. We're a club that has to work within the financial fair play like everybody does, but we are hampered by our recent past, which was 14 years. So until we improve our commercial revenue, we are always going to be in that position. So we have to think carefully about who we're going to sign, what we're going to spend, how much we're going to pay out in wages. But also what Eddie Howe thinks about is what the characters are going to be like in the dressing room. And I think that you can see it. It probably gets on other fans' wicks a little bit when Newcastle beat their team and the team are in the dressing room with these photographs. But I think what that does for the fan base and the fans at St James's Park in particular is it shows the unity. And it's something that we failed to have, Mark, in all the years under the previous owner. We haven't been united. We've had a disenfranchised fan base. We've had a fan base which had to vote with its feet to try and get the previous owner out. And we've had some tough times. Now, I hate to say it, tough times. It's tough times as a Newcastle fan. It's not tough times in the sense that we've lost our football club, which some people have through financial problems. But genuinely speaking, Eddie Howe, he deserves the praise. He won't take it. He's a very humble guy, but he deserves it, and he deserves to sit down tonight, whatever his tipple is, and just have that 5 minutes of reflection before, in his own words, he sits down and starts plotting for the Champions League. But it's been wonderful. It's been great. I'm as happy as, my Villa compatriot there, who was qualified for Europe under a manager when all looked lost after selling a star player, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad, and both of you talked there about financial fair play and how important it is. But I'll just stay with you, Steve, if I may, with Newcastle United. I've always been impressed with Eddie Howe. He's always answered any question I've ever asked him. And you know it's a genuine answer. He's ticked me off a couple of times when I've tried to get a bit clever, and I like that as well. But more than that, he's got a combination, and he's a real thinker. And why a job like Newcastle United is, for me, so good for Eddie Howe, and the ownership, which an awful lot of people, of course, elsewhere go mad about. Another oil billionaires, and got everything you want. This was a long time in the planning, and it's the whole of the great city of Newcastle that will benefit, not just the football club in the end, whatever anybody says. In the same way, and I know that, at the moment Manchester City have got lawyers on their breaking of the financial play and what have you, but the infrastructure will be changed. There will be money. The Rubin brothers are going to be important on that side of things. Amanda Staveley, whatever anybody thought about her and the way that she was involved in this deal, was that these owners, and it's why Manchester United, I don't understand why they don't also go after Middle Eastern owners and actually think that private equity with somebody who has got a few bob, but nothing like what you need these days, if you're going to do what you are in the Premier League, is so important. And it for me, it's sort of, Rest of my family, I'm afraid, of Sunderland fans and Mackems, but I know the whole area really well. And I think that it's a genuine area with genuine people who stick by those and have really a nose for whether they're being turned over or not. And they know that what they've got at the moment is patience for all of the shambolic way that you've been, lied to over many years.
It's a hotbed of soccer, the North East. That's what it's been for many years. And Middlesbrough and Sunderland both narrowly missing out on promotion to the Premier League this season. I'm sure they'll come again next year. Gateshead pulling off a great escape of their own and then getting to a final at Wembley. Carlisle today getting promoted in the playoff final. It's been quite a good season. The only downside, I guess, is Hartlepool being relegated. But yeah, it has been good. And in recent years in the non-league, the FA Vars has been a particular trophy which the North East teams have done well in. So things do appear to be on the up. Financially, in the real world, things are on the down in this area. It's often been overlooked and we do struggle day to day, but football is the one thing that keeps us going as whether you're in black and white, red and white or whatever. Getting back to the ownership of Newcastle though, I was in a privileged position. I was working for Rafa Benitez on a fan advisory situation. Yeah. And I think really Owen Brown, who is, a very close confidant for Rafa, deserves a lot of praise for persuading Amanda Staveley to come and look at Newcastle. And I was very lucky to be involved in that initial meeting with Amanda and sit with her and her husband, Mairdad, and talk about Newcastle United as a potential club to buy. And Owen Brown was the man who essentially persuaded Amanda to come to Newcastle instead of looking at maybe a Liverpool or a Manchester United. And that meeting was when she doorstepped Lee Charnley and said she wanted to speak to the owner, Mike Ashley. And the rest is history. And what I liked about Amanda's determination was that even though the first attempt failed, she didn't give in. And we were very lucky. We had those subsequent meetings online and she went on to do the business. And yes, the people who were involved, Jamie Rubin and his family and, PIF, the major shareholders, they will, I'm sure, work hard like they have done so far to continue the success. And the one thing I will say to Newcastle fans is, let's not go down the route of our past forefathers. And if next season is a bit of a struggle, if we don't get the players, if we don't get a bit of luck, if VAR is against us, if we get a few injuries to key players, if we struggle a little bit, and let's say we finish just outside the European slots like Spurs have done this season, but we have a couple of good cup runs, it's not the end of the world. It's better than being in a relegation battle and being back in the Championship. Newcastle's supporters' lives have changed for the better. You've just got to enjoy the ride and just enjoy what's going to happen. And similar for Aston Villa, it's a big season and a big result for them, and I'm sure they'll be competing next season, as you've already said. I listened to what you said before. They'll be competing in the transfer window. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be some big transfers, and I just can't wait, Mark. The season's just finished, but I can't wait for it to start again.
I know. I mean, it's for all of us, isn't it? I mean, my side, Cambridge United, we managed to stay up in the very last minute of the last game this season, and because of my work over 40 odd years, I hadn't been back as a fan standing on the terraces until the second half of this season. So, I've got to wait now before I can buy my season ticket, because obviously I haven't had one for so long. In fact, not since they were in the Southern League, would you believe? But I'm looking forward to it, and the dreams are exactly the same as you guys. And for both Villa, let's go back to Howard first of all here. Villa again, of course, having done great things in the past in Europe, but this is another thing for the players and for the people to stay at the club and get involved with the club and know the club is once more going in the right direction. And both the Midlands and the North East need these sort of successful clubs.
Yeah, it's really good news for English football in general to see these two fantastic, historic clubs back, up there where they belong. And I do think it's apt that I'm on with a Newcastle supporter today, because, I have to take my hat off to how well run they are now, because, you know, look at the two managers they went after, Emery and Howe. I mean, and they're both extremely diligent, hardworking, tracksuit wearing coaches. You know, we've both had Steve Bruce, and he was very different. I just think the way forward is with the coaches that really can work out the tactical plans to win football matches. It's not just about the checkbook. Obviously helps. It helps a great deal to have. But as we've seen with Chelsea, you know, what, £500-600 million spent with the new owner. They've had a shocking season. So it isn't just about money. You've got to have that right coach. And we've been very fortunate, both clubs, to get great coaches.
And I look, I don't know any of the owners of either side, but what I do have the feeling, and Howard, I'll come to you and then back to you, Steve, as well with this, is that I remember sitting down with Richard Scudamore, who was the brilliant chief executive at the Premier League over so many years, and it was me interviewing him to the whole of his staff at the Premier League in those days. And what was extraordinary, and I think it's both managers here and certainly both owners of these clubs, is that he said, look, I said, what is your best part of you? And he said, I'm by no means the best of anything, but what I never have had a problem with is bringing in people to work for me that are much better than I am. I can see who is good and make them feel good and not feel jealous or worried about my position. And I feel both, probably I don't know the owners at Aston Villa, but certainly with the Middle Eastern owners of Newcastle United, they've got the money. They don't need to worry. They've got nothing to prove on that front, but they want to make sure that their success is with successful people. And I think that's why you've got Emery.
Yeah, no, agreed. I don't think Emery would have considered Villa without Nassif Suarez and Wes Eden's input, and Christian Purslow too. And, we're very lucky that he passed. Yeah, I think Newcastle, it was purely because he was in the middle of something with Villarreal and the timing was off. That's the only reason why I didn't take the Newcastle job. Obviously, they were rooted to the bottom of the table at the time as well. Like, it was an amazing achievement what Eddie did. And I've just seen a graphic actually about both clubs. That Newcastle have gained 22 points on their position from last season's finishing position, which is top. The best increase. Manchester United second with 17 points increase, and Aston Villa third with 16 points. And it comes back again, you know, we've got proper managers at the football clubs now, and it takes the owners to appoint them, Mark. So you're quite right that if you have major egotistical owners that want to be the main man, ultimately, they want to do everything, it isn't going to work in the long run. You've got to respect what your role is and what the manager's role is. Stay out of it and just find the best possible person for your club. And we've done that.
You have. And so you have at Newcastle, Steve, and Champions League football next season.
Yeah, first time in 24 years. I mean, for us, that's fantastic. And I think most people have got the Champions League theme now as their ringtone. It's certainly playing out loud at Stamford Bridge, and people on the way to Stamford Bridge today. But yeah, I mean, I agree with what Howard says. You know, I mean, I think credit needs to be given as well to Fulham and Brentford. They've had fantastic seasons this season. You're talking a couple of points between, you know, Aston Villa and Brentford. And
Brighton as well.
Brighton as well. Brentford did the double over Manchester City. But ultimately, it's been a wonderful season. And again, I've got to agree with Howard. It's about ownership and what you said, Mark. Manchester United were very lucky. They got out of jail getting Ten Hag. And they've clearly allowed him to do what he does best. And, you know, they deservedly put us up in the Carabao Cup. And they've just pipped us to third place in the league. I would have took that at the start of the season, mate. But I do think that the teams that maybe, you know, have had it so good, I guess, for the last few years, need to look within. Tottenham, they've gone through a succession of high-profile managers. and it hasn't worked, probably down to the owner. And the same has to be said for Chelsea. The replacement of Abramovich with Bowley and the subsequent ridiculous spend is not seemingly gone down well in the dressing room. So, it's not our problem. It's not Aston Villa's problem. We can sit back this summer in our deck chairs, and in the claret and blue and black and white and be very happy with our job and concentrate on next season and what we're going to achieve next year.
Well, look, many congratulations to both of you, to all fans of both clubs as well. And the only problem we've got is waiting for the new season.
Have a good summer, lads.
Yeah, you too as well.
Care.
Brilliant, both of you. Thank you very much indeed. Han Hodgson, the former director of Villa Supporters Trust, and Steve Wraith, the YouTuber for NUFC Matters. What also matters was Luton Town have made it back to the Premier League. And Darren Jones, who's a regular